Carlos Bulosan, a Filipino-American author, poet, and activist, is best remembered for his novel America is in the Heart, originally published in 1946. He is also remembered as a progressive, anti-colonial, pro-labor, humanitarian voice by an array of communities, including Asian Pacific Islanders, organized labor, academics, and intellectuals. When he died in Seattle in 1956, he left a large body of poems, novels, short stories, plays, and correspondence, now part of the Labor Archives collection at the University of Washington. This exhibit draws on Bulosan's papers as well as those of his friends, associates, and the records of the Cannery Workers Union. View the exhibit, Author, Poet, and Worker, The World of Carlos Bulosan, at the University of Washington Library's Special Collections in Allen Library from November 7, 2014 through March 13, 2015.
So in the intro of the book, you find this quotation. It is described as a deeply moving account of what it is like to be treated as a criminal in a strange and alien society, one to which the immigrant has been drawn precisely because of the attraction of its ideals. I bolded a few words here because, again, it communicates the paradox of what it means to come to the United States. So while the United States sent this message about its ideals and this being a country where people could come and succeed, the reality did not always align to that ideal and was not as simple. And in fact, as captured here, Bulosan himself experienced being treated as a criminal in this land. I should also note that while the text is also a memoir, it really does capture more of a collective experience of Filipino immigrants. But I want to point out that he doesn't completely turn against his new country because of the experiences that he has here being treated as a criminal. In fact, it's important to pay attention to how he communicates the complexity of America. Specifically, we now need to talk about the context for this cycle's reading. You need to know that Bulosan grew up as the fourth son in a poor peasant family. And here's a picture of fields in the Philippines that show the typical working setting for a boy like Bulosan. He worked as a farmer with his family, with his father, while his mother lived in a separate village with two younger siblings. And while they lived in different parts, they were not separated. The parents did remain married. The first part of the text does focus a lot on two of Bulosan's brothers. One we meet in part 1. And this is an older brother who is off fighting in a war. And it could be presumed that he is off fighting in World War I because of the time frame, and also because, again, the U.S. had colonized the Philippines, and so some Filipinos actually ended up serving as soldiers in Europe. And a second brother is off studying. The family dream, in fact, was to send one of the sons through school. School, because of American colonization, had become free to Filipinos. However, because of how few schools there were, most families were only able to send one of their children to study. And in sending them off to study, they had to pay for their room, their board, clothing, things like that. And this is why they could only afford to send one. And everything that you see in part 1, all the hard work that the family is focused on accomplishing, is with the goal of having this son graduate from high school and become a teacher. A few things to keep in mind as you read. The first part of the book describes Bulosan's life growing up poor in the Philippines, like I said before. And the stories that he tells are very purposeful. Okay, and these stories, we're going to call them anecdotes, and you should be referencing anecdotes in our weekly writing that you will do on Monday. So these anecdotes do a few things. One, they tell purposefully why America is such a desired place, but specifically for our purposes, you need to pay attention to them to understand what is he saying about his perception of his family, and what is he saying about the perception of his country. And as you're reading part 1, you need to follow the trajectory of Bulosan's social awakening. So look to see how he becomes conscious of social classes in his country. And through those stories, through those anecdotes, pay attention to the tone that he's going to be using, because he's going to be sending a message about what life in the Philippines is like. You need to keep in mind that our first thought paper will be answering this focus question. what does Bulusan's experience in the Philippines reveal about his life in his native country? And again, you're going to have to reference techniques that he uses. Two specific ones that I want you to pay close attention to are tone and anecdotes.